Okay, here is your steps for an initial format. The first thing that you're going to do is you're going to write down the candidate's last name, the candidate's first name. If they have a consultant assigned, most 24-hour urgent RSPs are not going to have a consultant assigned to you. But if it's an initial format, it will come from a consultant. So you would write that down. You would also write down the date it was sent to work order and then the date that you are working on it. You also need to go ahead and write down your start time at this point. Okay, so we open up our resume. The very first thing that you're going to do is turn on your paragraph marks. I already have that on here. The next thing you're going to do is select the entire document, and you're going to clear your formatting. It's this button here. The next thing that you're going to do is select your font, which is going to be Tahoma 10.5 for initial formats. For finals, you will use whatever font they have selected, or if they did not select one, you are going to format in the original font that was on the resume. You're going to change the layout to the size 8.5 by 11. You're going to change your margins at 1 inch. Clear any of your tab stops if you have those. And if you double click the tab, you can clear all. Okay, once you've cleared all that, you're going to go up, make sure the whole document is selected. You're going to clear out all your spacing, make all your indents 0, clear all the spacing before and after, and change your line spacing to single. You need to make sure that this box is completely clear of everything. With everything selected, you're going to go back to the home and under the font. You're going to make sure your scale is 100, your spacing is normal, your position is normal, and that is unchecked. Okay, we're going to make sure that there's no gray paragraph marks in our header and our footer. Okay, so now we're ready to get this formatted. This is very important. You need to look at the original resume and see what it looks like. You have to go by whatever it looks like on the original. So this is a classic, so that's how we're going to format this. Okay, under the quick parts, we're going to put in our classic header. Now, once you add anything to this resume, you need to make sure that you check your spacing and your indents to make sure that it didn't default to the original. It will do that when you add the header sometimes, so you have to go back and manually change that. Everything should be 0, 0 spacing before, 0 after, and line spacing is single. Your name is going to be bold. It's going to be 18. It's going to be each word capitalized and small caps. This is for classic. For contemporary, it's going to be 18, each word capitalized, and it's going to be bolded. So the only difference is it's not small caps for contemporary. Plug in your information. Your phone number needs to be separated by periods. It also needs to be hyperlinked. See your toolkit on instructions how to do that. Once you've plugged in all of your information, you need to make sure that your contact information is 10-point in font. your email and LinkedIn should be lowercase, and they should be hyperlinked as well. You're going to have 2 full space marks before the headline. The headline on a classic is going to be bolded, 14-point font, each word capitalized, and small caps. It will also be centered. Your branding statement comes after that. It's also going to be centered. It's going to be 10.5 font. It's going to be bolded with a 6-point space above it. You default on finals to whatever they had it on the final. If it's an initial, it's going to be each word capitalized as your default. So your branding statement, once again, is 10.5 bold with 6-point space above that. You're going to have 1 full space underneath your branding statement, and you're going to go into your summary. You're going to need to scan this for any double space marks after your period. If they have multiple sections to it, multiple paragraphs, you're going to split each one apart with a 6-point space above any section after the first one. So a 6-point space above this second paragraph here. You're also, this one has a pipe list, so your pipe list is centered. You cannot split your pipe list up where the second line is in between an element within the pipe list. So we're going to delete this pipe here and hit the enter button. So there's no pipe at the very end of it. There's no space marks. It just goes to the next line. The very first line of the pipe list is going to have a 6-point space. Now, if this had a lead in where it said expertise, you would have a 6-point space above that and then a 3-point space. But since our original resume did not have that, we do not add anything. So this starts a new section. So it's going to be a 6-point space above the first one, and then 3-point spaces for all the lines below that. We need to make sure that there's a space before and after each pipe, and that everything is consistent. So each word should be capitalized in this. Okay. Our next section header. Every section header should start off with 2 full spaces before it, 2 full spaces after it. Each section header on a classic is 14-point font, bolded, each word capitalized, and in small caps. It's also centered. Everything is, every section header is centered on a classic. If this were a contemporary, our section headers are 12-point. They are each word capitalized and bolded. They are not in small caps. So as we go down to the professional experience section, our company names are all caps. They are bolded. They are followed by a location. The comma after the company name is not bolded. The location is the city, comma, to state abbreviation. Your job type or your inclusive date is going to be to the right margin with a right tab stop. It is going to be unbolded. Your job titles are going to be bolded, each word capitalized with a 6-point space above it. All right, you need to refer to your original resume here to see if they have job scopes or if they just have accomplishment bullets. This does have a job scope. It only has 1 accomplishment bullet, so we keep it like that. Our first tier bullets are the closed circle. We bring them to the left-hand margin. 3-point spaces above accomplishment bullets. The job scope goes directly below the job title with no spaces. Okay. For our bullets, we need to make sure that the indents are appropriate. So we right-click on the bullet itself, adjust list indents, and it should be 0, 0.25 with a tab stop at 0.25. Going on to the next one. The next company name, it's going to still be all caps, bolded. But as you can see here, it has multiple job titles. So with different locations. So we're not going to prompt for a location with the company name because the job titles have locations. The inclusive date is to the right margin with a right tab stop. Job titles are bolded with a 6-point space above it, and job title dates are bolded and they are a 1/2 inch from the right margin. We're going to refer to our original resume here. They do have a job scope with 2 bullets created and tailored. We bring those to the left margin, 3-point spaces above. We're going to click on the first bullet, right click it, adjust our indents to 0, 0.25, and 0.25. Our job scope is directly below the job title. Okay. We also need to make sure that everything within this section, the job scope and accomplishment bullets, have periods at the very end. All right, the locations are correct. City, comma, two letter abbreviation. The job title date is 1/2 inch from the right margin with a right tab stop. It does have a job scope and 1 accomplishment bullet at established, and we need to bring this over to the left margin, 3-point space before it, click on the bullet, right click, adjust indent, and get that corrected. Okay, see this is missing a period here. We need to add that. All right, our new section header here is 2 full spaces above it, 1 below it. Section header bold, 14, each word capitalized, small caps, and centered for classic. Now, here's a good example. I will show you how we format this as an initial format. Since this is a final, I'm going to leave it looking just like this. And I'm going to format it just like I did in the section above. But for an initial format, I'm going to show you how we do it. For an initial format, it follows the company name, which is still formatted the same, all caps, bolded, followed by the location if they have it. You would not prompt for it. The job title is bolded. Now I changed that, so I'm going to mark that in orange. And then the date would be in parentheses. This doesn't fit very well, so I would go here and just delete this and bring that down like that. All right, they have found, adapted, and placed as accomplishment bullets. Okay, and as I'm doing the bullets, I'm also skimming the resume for any numbers, any ampersands, or any double spaces, any slashes, all of that. Okay, and our toolkit tells us in the additional experience section, we bring down the company name, and there's 1 full space in between. This would not be bolded, and then the date would be in parentheses. But once again, that doesn't look good, so I would delete this and bring that down just like that. They have created, bulleted. Okay, and because this is an initial format, I will bring this down, and I will delete this additional row and put that there. And that is just because this is an initial format. If I was doing this as an initial format, that's what this would look like. Okay, 2 full spaces above our section header, 1 after it, 14-point font, each word capitalized, small caps, and centered. All right, let's see what they have here. Okay, I don't see any degrees, so in that case, we would put them in reverse chronological order, or how they have them. So, because a lot of these don't have dates. So I'm going to leave this like this, General Studies. And for an initial format, I would prompt for this. They have California, but they don't have the city. All right, and for classics, all the sections below the professional experience are centered, and you're going to have 3-point spaces after the first one. Okay, 2 full spaces above your section header, 1 after, 14-point font, centered, each word capitalized, small caps. All right, these are centered because it's a classic. And then after the first element, a 3-point space above it. Okay, now that I have it formatted, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the replace. I'm going to check for anything I may have missed. Colon, which is the shift, and then 2 spaces, see if I have missed any of those. I'm going to put a period, 2 spaces, see if I missed any of those. The slash, check for spaces before and after. Technical terms, we don't put spaces. Check ampersands. If they're in the body of a resume, we would change it to the word and mark it in orange. I'm going to run a spell check, marking anything in orange if I change it. I'm going to put it in multiple page view, and I'm going to justify everything that is not centered. Okay, so now that is the initial format. What I'm going to do is go to page 17, and I'm going to check it. Okay, my margins are at 1 inch. Check. Spacing throughout the document is consistent. So, got 6-point spaces above every job title, 3-point space between each job bullet, or each accomplishment bullet. Okay, my spacing is correct. My font is 10.5. Yes, it is. My page header, the name is 18 point. My contact information is 10. My location follows the correct format. My email and LinkedIn are lowercase and in the correct color. My telephone is separated by periods and it's hyperlinked. Section headers, it says there should be 2 full line spaces before and 1 after. 2 before, 1 after, 2 before, 1 after, 2 before, 1 after, 2 before, 1 after, 2 before, 1 after. Make sure the font on my main headers are 14 small caps and bold, 14 small caps, bold, 14 small caps, bold, each word capitalized. Company names. Every company name should have 1 full line before it. They should be all caps and bold. So let's check that. All caps, bold, 1 full space before it. All caps, bold, 1 space before it. All caps, bold, 1 space before it. All caps, bold, 1 space before it. All caps, bold, and 1 space before it. Every job title should be bold and 6 point before it. Bold, 6 before it. Locations. They should be not bolded. City with a 2-state abbreviation. If they don't have it, it needs to be in orange. So let's double check that. Okay? That's not bold. City, comma, 2-digit abbreviation. Okay? That doesn't have it, but each job title does, so that's okay. All right, that's done. Dates. Job title or inclusive dates should be aligned to the right margin and not bold. That's correct. That's correct. Job title dates a 1/2 inch and they are bold. That's correct. That's correct. In the additional experience section, they're in parentheses after the job title. You need to make sure that if they're using dashes, the dashes are the correct dash. If they're using 2, you need to make sure it's consistent throughout. Bullets, we need to make sure that they are aligned correctly, that all the indents are correct, and they have 3-point spaces above them. Make sure that there are periods at the end of everything that should have it. Period, 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 period. They all do. Okay, make sure that there's not any numbers that need to be written numbers that need to be changed to numerical numbers. And I kind of do this as I go through the resume, but I can glance through it again. Make sure everything is justified, which we did that before, but I will double check again because our checklist tells us to. It is. We've done the grammar check. I'm going to look at it on print preview to make sure everything is lined up correctly. It is. I'm going to change it to view 100, cut off our paragraph marks, and save it. And that is completely done. So even looking over that and talking through it and going over every single line on that checklist, it took me 30 minutes. If you go through every single letter or every single bullet on page 17, you are going to eliminate 90% of your mistakes, period. You just have to do it. And it's time consuming, it's frustrating, But I used that for probably 3 to 6 months. I had to go through every single thing on that checklist. And now, after doing it years and years, I still go through that checklist. I just do it in my head. I have it memorized. And I still catch some mistakes. So that is an initial. Now, what I'm going to do is make this a final because this originally was a final. It's a final work order. So I'm just going to show you how to make it a final. I'm going to change this back to black because they will know that that's what that's supposed to be. For finals, you don't want as much black or as much orange on a final. For regular things like that are blatantly obvious, just change it. You would change any of the ands, the numbers. You would change the states to 2 abbreviations without marking orange. But if it is something that you need to question, then of course you need to mark it orange. Now, because this is a final, I'm going to make sure it looks like how they want it on the initial. That's the only thing I'm doing here. Okay, so now let's see, they just had California. So I'm just going to delete that and I'm going to put California back because it's a final, so I'm going to leave it like that. Okay, I think that's the only thing that I needed to change back for the final. Okay, so when you have a final and you've got it formatted like you would an initial, we need to add second page headers. So this one's super easy. So I'm just going to go to the very bottom. I'm going to insert a page break. And I'm going to insert a second page header. And I need to highlight all this and delete all that spacing again. Alright, copy his name. And it's 12-point font, his name. So I need to decrease that to 12. Okay, this needs to be 10. Now this center tab has to be half of the total margin. So if this is 7, this needs to be 3.5. See, if this were to be 7, this would be 3.5. It has to be centered. And since this starts a new section header, I just need to make sure that there's 2 full before and 1 after. Okay. Now I want to make this fulfill the page a little better, so I'm going to increase the spacing between each one to 6 because we can do that. We want to make it look better, but we have to be consistent, and I need to do it for all of them. See if that looks a little better. It does, but let me see, we can also increase our font up to size 11. And when we do that, we need to make sure we do the paragraph marks too. They're important. Let me go ahead and change this to 11. Okay. Now that put that back there. So now let me change this back to 3 because I think it will look better that way. Alright, let's see. I want it to look the best I can. Okay, I think that's going to be as close as it's going to look. We want it to fill out the page as much as we can. Oh, but you know what? Let's see. See how this brought that? So I need to put this on a separate line. Okay. Let me see if I like this better. Yeah, I like that better. Okay, so now I'm going to save it. Now I'm going to make a copy of it before I do anything else. Every final has a RJO and a text. So I'm working from the copy. First thing I do before I do anything else is remove the second page header. If this had a cult cleaning and restoration services continued, I would delete that as well. And I'm going to go ahead and put 2 full spaces before it again. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and save that again. So I've got the copy. Now, for RJOs, anything in text boxes, you would make list. Now, for RJOs, every job title has to have a date to the right margin with a right tab stop, and it has to have a company name before it. So for this one, these job titles have dates already, so I'm going to remove the inclusive date. I'm going to copy this. And these dates need to be to the right margin. All right, this job title, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to paste that because it needs to have a full space in between each one, and we're going to move this to the right margin. Okay, same here. I'm going to hit enter. It needs to have a full space, needs to be to the right margin. This, the job title, it needs to have a company name before it, and then the rest is fine. So I'm going to go ahead and save as, and this is my RJO. Alright, so I can clear out of that, and I'm going to pull up the copy again, and I'm going to make the text version. We're working off our copies, not the original. Okay, so I'm working off the copy. We need to make a list. Name and location are all caps. All the headers are going to be all caps. The pipe lists are going to be separated by the dash and the space. So we're just going to delete. If this were a table, we would convert the table to text, and then the bullets would be deleted and replaced with the dash space. Section headers are up. all caps. Job titles, all caps. Tabs are replaced with 4 spaces. Bullets are replaced with the dash space. Tabs changed to 4 spaces. Job titles, all caps. Bullets replaced with dash space. If you have multiple job titles under one, the second job title and all the rest need to be separated with a full space before it. Tabs, 4 spaces. Bullets replaced. Section headers, all caps. Job titles, all caps. Tabs replaced with 4 spaces. All bullets are replaced with dash space. Job titles, all caps. Tabs removed with 4 spaces. Job titles, all caps. All this separated. Everything below the education training, if these had bullets, they would be replaced with dash space. Since these don't have bullets, you would add dash space to separate these. Dash space to separate these new elements. Alright, you also need to go up to the home and where it says replace any long dash with regular dashes and any parentheses with the single. And then you save as text. Save as type, plain text. And then you bring this up and you look to see if there's anything in bold. Anything that stands out. Make sure that everything is in all caps that it's supposed to be. Okay, I'll bring up my RJO. I'll also bring up my final. I'm going to do a print preview, make sure it looks okay. They should all the dates on the RJO should be aligned to the right margin. That looks good. And that looks good. And that's it. So I showed you how to do an initial, how to make that initial a final, an RJO, and a text.